Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show, broadcast live at 7 p.m. every Wednesday. I'm the host, Mark Devlin, and I'm glad to have you with us here on this Wednesday night on Scotland's number one political chat. And we're having Mary, go ahead. Say hello if you like. This is my co-host, Mary Devlin.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Okay, and David has just appeared below, so we had some technical issues just to get started, but if he gives me the thumbs up, we can be ready to go. Hi, David, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm so sorry. I've had difficulty getting onto every one of my apps tonight. Very, very embarrassing, but here I am. Hope you can hear me okay, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you fine. What are you going to be talking about tonight?
Well, I'm going to be talking about the SNP's very sinister culture of indulging sex pests tonight, guys. Not a very savoury topic, but that's it.
We could talk about that every week.
Well, we do talk about that every week. Okay.
And another subject we talk about every week, just about, I'll be talking about how the ferries chaos has gotten so bad that the islanders and businesses there are now demanding urgent interventions and compensation.
All right, okay. And I will be talking about the SNP's ludicrous attempts to try and hold the balance of power over Labour.
Yeah.
And we'll also, of course, have Zoomer of the Week. Great. So we'll see you all in just a minute.
Fantastic.
Right, so here we are back again on Scotland's number one politics chat and discussion. Thank you for coming in already. Hi from Orkney. Sunny Saudi Arabia. Must be quite sunny, I suppose, over there. And wherever you are across the globe or across Scotland, we are welcome to have you with us. We always start with a big thank you to UK Union Voice and United Against Separation Facebook pages for where many of you are watching tonight. It's great to have their support.
Indeed. And wherever you are, everyone, please like, share, comment, tell your friends, extend the reach of the show at the click of a button.
And as usual, I'll be dealing with all the comments tonight, so please make them short and snappy, and I'll try to get as many up on screen as I possibly can.
Right, okay, if you haven't seen them already, please have a look out for our series on Scotland's devolution disaster. They are on the Majority website. How did a system that was supposed to stop nationalism end up fueling it more? And it's generated a lot of discussion and a lot more to come. We really like to hear your comments and views on that, if you can. Let me just get to the thing.
And we have new T-shirts for sale in the Majority shop. You can
Yes.
check out my favourite. It says, "You're my favourite Zoomer" T-shirt.
And that's this one here.
A great
You're
present,
my
perfect
favourite
for the
Zoomer.
summer. And a portion of every sale goes to help supporting the Majority.
That is great. Now, if you remember last week, we had an interview with Colin McGowan of the Blameless charity, a charity that aims to help the families and children who have been who've been affected by addiction. And he also runs a Talking Drugs program in schools, which has helped thousands of kids. We did the interview last week, and just as to help the charity out a little bit more, we are going to show his video, a different video, where Colin explains about the charity at the very end of the show. So if you can, please stay on after the final credits, or we'll give you a reminder again. And if you can, donate, or just tell people about it, because it's a really good program. Right. We have lots of stuff on the show today, so we will be back in just a second. Okay. Right. Okay. So we got SNP trying to hold Labour hostage over a hung Parliament. I mean,
Indeed.
we shouldn't really laugh. Well, they're trying to say that they will hold the balance of power, but they don't have any balance, and they have even less power. So a few days ago, Stephen Flynn was up there, and he was saying that in exchange for the support This is what he said. We would be very clear in terms of our ask. We would want the cost of living to put front and centre of the policy prospectus of any UK government. Well, it is anyway. It doesn't matter which one it is. We would want to see the damage that's been caused by Brexit rolled back, not just to boost our economy, to boost our public services as well. And of course, we would be very, very keen to see a UK government, particularly a Labour government, deliver the powers to Holyrood to hold an independence referendum. Well, okay. And that was accompanied by some. I don't know if I've got the thing. Where's it gone? I had the page actually there with front pages on the national newspapers, outlining these demands. Brexit should be rolled back, and a second independence referendum should be given, which is a little bit strange. To give them from Keir Starmer, who apparently is a guy who is used to making so many U-turns that the SNP want to work with him. Anyway, David, some initial thoughts on that.
Well, I think it is fascinating that the SNP, after spending so many years saying how Labour are absolutely unelectable and useless and nobody should ever vote Labour again, are now saying, yeah, let's have a Labour government and we can work with them, of course. Yeah, please work with us, guys. Yeah, okay, fine, whatever.
Working with the Red Tories, indeed.
Absolutely. It's clear that they're just desperate, and that's the only reason that any SNP senior figure would say anything positive about the Labour Party, is out of sheer desperation. The truth is, the SNP they can see their power base has eroded massively, and that they know that their vote is shifting. They're hemorrhaging votes. They're very concerned that the other pro-independence parties, i.e. Alba, might be taking stealing some of their ground. And they really, at the moment, are just reaching into anybody at all. They know that the Liberal Democrats are likely to be the second biggest party next year, the third biggest party after next year's election, not the SNP. And so they're going to no doubt start saying, oh, yeah, Liberal Democrats are useless. No, work with us, Labour. It's not going to happen. Labour aren't going to want to work with the SNP. Luckily for us, because had the SNP retained their third place in terms of number of seats won, yeah, Labour probably would have worked with them, but no, at the moment you've got this.
I don't know. I mean, they've been quite adamant about not working with them, and I think here's a typical thing here. Starmer says that, I've got this clip somewhere down here. Nope, it seems to be missing. But anyway, he says here, rules out a deal over independence. Fundamental difference. Well, the fundamental difference is they don't want to break up the UK, right? He says he didn't answer this article actually says he didn't answer anything about making an alliance with the Lib Dems. Well, Lib Dems are more of a natural fit, anyway, right? With Labour. I think it seems to me that this message is directed to Tories and England and Scotland who don't trust Starmer. But I think it's not actually a matter of trust, really. It's one of logic. The SNP simply have no bargaining position. Yeah. And that was highlighted back in February when this scheme was proposed, challenged. One of the early challenges, I suppose, against Nicola Sturgeon on this thing called the newsagents, which I will play now.
Now, Labour have said that Keir Starmer have said they just will not engage with you about negotiations about another referendum, even in the event of a hung parliament. You've said in the past that a Tory government is the worst outcome for Britain, and especially for Scotland. So are there, presumably then, there are no circumstances in which you would allow the Tories to stay in office in the event of a hung parliament, even if Labour refused to talk to you about another referendum?
Well, look, in the, 3 general elections I've fought as SNP leader now, I've always said that. If the parliamentary arithmetic lends itself to this, I will always, have the SNP vote in a way that locks the Tories out of Downing Street, and that's my position, and that will continue to be my position. I would sort of reverse that though, and is Keir Starmer in that position going to, not take the opportunity to get the Tories out because he won't talk to the SNP? And I think that is a ridiculous thing.
But if you just said that you would always vote to get the Tories out, then you've got no bargaining power with Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer will just say, well, you've just said that.
Yeah, but Keir Starmer will have to get other things done if he wants to, have a
so
meaningful...
like a Labour budget, for example.
Well, look...
So to be clear, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics. You would definitely allow a Labour government to take office. You'd get rid of the Tories because you dislike the Tories. But what you're saying is that if they are not willing to negotiate about your priorities, which obviously your biggest priority is securing another independence referendum, which you say you've got a mandate for, then you would be potentially willing to vote down a Labour government, Labour budget,
look,
a Labour
what
King's
I'm saying
speech.
Is, this is a particular statement of fact. Any Prime Minister that wants to go, and I'm not trying to set hairs running, I'm not getting into specifics of budgets or Queen's speeches or anything, but any Prime Minister that wants to govern as opposed to just sitting in Downing Street in a hung parliament, the SNP's been a minority government in here. You have to work with other parties to get your legislation and your policies through. So the idea that Keir Starmer wouldn't have to work with the SNP and come to agreements and compromises with the SNP in that scenario is just not credible.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. You see how they've been pushing this idea here that they would, they won't vote against Labour, but when, basically all Labour needs to say at any point is, well, if you not voting with us, who are you voting with?
Right.
Right. Well, you're voting with the Tories then.
Yep.
Right. So there's no way out of this at all. I mean, you remember back in the olden days, David?
Yes.
Not to say you're older, anything than us, but you have more knowledge of these issues than we do.
You've been around in the UK a lot more than us.
Do you remember the last time that the SNP did work with the Tories, and how well did that go?
I absolutely do. You're talking about the 1974 to 1979 parliamentary term, towards the end of which you had the winter of discontent, and the Labour government really wasn't working, and that was the Tories' big advertising. I mean, Labour isn't working in the massive queues and stuff, and the winter of discontent and the rubbish piled up in the streets, all that stuff. And at that time, leading up to 74, to the beginning of that term, the SNP had been very strong, and then it started to wane a little bit. By the end of it, by 1979, everybody was sick of the Labour government. Jim Callaghan had taken over from Harold Wilson, and eventually there was a vote of no confidence raised by, or tabled by, Margaret Thatcher. And guess whose 11 MPs voted with Margaret Thatcher to get the Labour government out of power? That's right, the SNP. So ever since then, the Labour Party has thrown this accusation at the SNP that, well, all you want to do is work with the Tories to get the Conservative government back in. You guys, what you did, allowed Margaret Thatcher to get in and allowed 18 years of Conservative government. And really, the SNP doesn't really have an answer to that, because that's what they did. Admittedly, the DUP voted with the vote no confidence also, as did the Liberal Democrats by that stage. The only parties, I think, that voted with Labour, well, the UUP, the Ulster Unionists, very few others. And that was it. And so that's what brought in Margaret Thatcher. SNP votes in Westminster brought in Margaret Thatcher. And that has been a sword that's hung over them ever since. So no, it absolutely didn't work out well.
Well, and we can also all remember these posters in the previous election with Ed Miliband. It was Alex Salmond with Ed Miliband in his pocket.
That's right.
And basically, I think that, I mean, that's does anyone really think though that, was it a puppet? Was it a puppet thing, or was it in the pocket?
There was a little thing in the top pocket, from what I can remember. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
And does anyone really think that Humza Yousaf can, have that same type of power? In fact, Humza Yousaf has been very quiet during all of this nonsense that's been going on here. He hasn't really been saying very much at all. Most of it is, for most of it in the Labour side, they're like, well, we're going to have a majority anyway, so to hell with you lot, basically. That's pretty much. Now, I think that some credit has to be given to the Labour strategists. We often talk about how awful the Tory strategists are, but the Labour strategists seem to have had this right. Wasn't that long ago that Keir Starmer was equivocating quite a lot about whether a second referendum should happen or not. He just wouldn't really make a decision on it. Now they're very, very firm, and I think that is a lot that's down to the Scottish Labour team really pushing this, because they know that they can't get anywhere by working with the SNP.
Right. Yeah. That's absolutely true. They know that it's just a very, very short-term way of possibly getting power, but I don't think Labour fancy it at all, and I don't blame them, because the SNP have been absolutely tearing strips off Labour in order to get power ever since 2007 in Holyrood and 2015 in Westminster elections. So Labour, the last thing they want to do is work with the SNP. That being said, of course, guys, as we've prophesied several times, if it so happens that the SNP are holding the balance of power by some chance of arithmetic, let's say Labour's 20 short, let's say the Liberal Democrats blow out, it's unlikely, and the SNP's got 20 or 30 seats, would they do a deal together to keep the Tories out of Parliament? Yeah, I think they probably would, to be honest. But right now, you're not going to get Labour admitting that any more than Labour will admit that they will work with anybody else.
But I don't think there's any. I mean, it might be a deal on something else, but I don't think it will ever be a deal on an independent.
I agree. I think you're right.
And I don't think it can be a deal on Brexit either, because basically these are dead issues almost to Labour. Labour don't want to be dragged back into a whole Brexit thing again. That's the last thing they want. Brexit destroyed the Tory party, and it could easily destroy the Labour party as well, because many Labour people voted for Brexit.
So they did.
It would just destroy their party. I think that's quite straightforward. And the same thing with this referendum now. There's no support for it at all. That reminds me of the Scorpion and the Frog, what you were saying earlier there. The story, the Scorpion asked the Frog to carry them over the river. The Frog is afraid of being stung. But the Scorpion argues that if it did so, then both would sink and the Scorpion would drown. The Frog then agrees, but midway across the river, the Scorpion does indeed sting the Frog, dooming them both. When asked why, the Scorpion points out, well, it was in my nature.
I'm a Scorpion, that's what I do. Exactly.
Right, that's it. And that's what the SNP is like. They will do whatever they can, they will sting whatever they can, but ultimately they are only a one policy party. And if they're failing in that, then where have they got to go? They've got nowhere to go here.
It's true. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Holyrood, the SNP is giving in constantly to the Green Party on their red lines. Right. So that's why they let them lead the agenda on all of these crazy issues like gender reform, HPMA, all this stuff. That's all Green stuff. It's not SNP stuff, any of it.
Yeah, of course.
However, conversely, let's say the SNP went to Labour and said, right, okay, you're 20 seats, sure, we've got 30 seats, right? These are our two red lines. Independence referendum, no, you're not getting that. Okay. Rejoin Europe, the EU. No, we're not doing that either. Right, okay. Well, in that case, we'll come with you anyway. Because what was crazy? You can't see right choice. Exactly. So they have got nothing. So they've got no hand here at all. And Labour knows that. And that's why they're saying, why would we do a deal with them? They've got nothing. No.
But interestingly, on the other side, people will see that. Surely their own supporters must see that at some point and say, this is a party that doesn't actually have any power. Yeah. And we can't actually do anything here. And now I'm not going to suggest any alternatives to that, how they could possibly approach it in a different way. But it kind of leads us on to this next section, which is about the SNP brand. Now, I was reading this article by a guy called Robin McAlpine. He's a nationalist commentator, and he still thinks that the party can be redeemed. But he's saying, there's the messaging's all over the place. Pete Wishart saying it must be a plebiscite election. Alan Smith saying it's all about stopping Brexit. Maree Black saying it's about coalition deals for Section 30 orders. Stephen Flynn, he said it's about the cost of living. And one day they're telling us independence is off the table. Next day they're saying if they'll let the Tories into Westminster if Labour doesn't give them a referendum.
Yeah, right.
It's like they're all over the place, right? Yep. So he's saying that the SNP's brand is broken and it needs a rebrand. If you get this is quite good.
An understatement.
If the SNP wants to get out of this, it needs to be saying vote SNP now with added competence.
What?
God, this little advert for toothpaste. My God.
Or SNP, the biggest software update ever, has fixed the bugs.
Yeah, quite.
Or SNP no longer just for Section 30 orders or something like that. Damaged brands need to change. It's really that simple. Now with added competence.
Is this a joke?
Well, that's the thing. It's so desperate. That's the problem with them. The truth is, though, that the SNP has rebranded itself through their own misadventures into a party of grifters, gropers, and no-hopers. Well, we
need to get that T-shirt, Mark.
That's good.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea. That's very good. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so now that the Emperor's new clothes being exposed, is that the right thing?
Yes.
The lack of clothes.
Lack of clothes, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Then we see it's a party of sexual deviants. We'll come to that in the next section.
Yes.
Party of alleged criminals. A party whose CEO was arrested for alleged fraud. A party whose former leader had police tents erected on her lawn. A party whose previous leader was a groper. A party whose current leader is an incompetent fool. And a party that lets another party dictate their policies.
Exactly.
So I mean, that's the
What's
brand.
the brand here? How do you reset that brand exactly, guys? I'd love to hear it. I mean, the SNP brand is broken like Vladimir Putin is broken as a brand. I mean, how on earth is he going to put himself right? Really? I mean, just come on. It's finished.
Well, Mary, you're a marketing expert.
Oh, I'm sorry, you can't ask for my help on this one.
Yes. Come on, Mary. How are you going to reset the SNP brand?
It's billboards. That's billboards. New SNP. That's it.
You know, branding can't. It can't do miracles. Let's put it that way.
Quite.
Well, yes, can't. Put
And
too
miracles
much,
is what they need. I think.
Lipstick on the pig, as it were, because the core is, I suppose, it's stripped back. You know, we often talked about this. Nicola Sturgeon was like a face. You know, put on a smart suit, but it's still nationalism,
Exactly.
right? It's still division. It's still, you know, it doesn't matter if you're saying, "Oh yeah, we want to be international over here." When your core belief is, I want to get away from our closest neighbour. It's not really. There's an underlying core, and gradually it gets stripped away, and we start to see, well, okay, first of all, they're a bunch of gropers and no-hopers and so on, grifters. Yep. But we also see that underneath it, the core ideology that drives these people is the problem, I think. And do you want division, and do you want grievance, or do you want a dead end, or do you want unity and growth and a future and be part of something? And I think that's what Labour, for if you're an anti-Tories voter, then that's what Labour are offering. You've got a dead end on one side and a dead end ideology on the other side, and on the other side you've got at least there's some hope that you could be part of some kind of change.
Absolutely right.
The number one tenet of branding, if we're still talking about that, is authenticity. And that's what the SNP don't have anymore.
Quite right.
I think people can see through. I mean, anyone can say anything. I could say, I'm the most talented person in the world, but you've actually got to show some,
We'll believe you, Mary.
Maybe I should try that. Well, I mean, that's kind of thing the SNP do, right? They claim this and they claim that, and both things are opposites.
Yeah, it's kind of like they don't seem to have any good messaging at the moment.
Here's one. The rebrand is the Murrells are gone.
Oh, well, that's
it'll take more than that.
Yeah, so or better for camper vans, or and
better for lady razors. Yeah, quite. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how that's all going to play out, but I think it's sometimes brands just die. There's this thing in the States with this guy, person, Dylan Mulvaney, and they took that. Who has destroyed the Bud Light brand. Yeah. And, a lot of people were quite only too happy because they didn't like it to begin with. So it gives them an excuse to
They've lost 26% of their value.
Right.
Wow. Of their sales. 13% has gone to each of their main competitors.
And
it's billions and billions and billions wiped off their share price.
Well, that shows you the power of branding and the power of personality to some extent. But the thing that amazes me is there's still some idiots on there and on Twitter and wherever. Today there was this guy,
amazing,
and he's just going on about how Scotland was, a country and all this stuff, and it had been colonised and stuff. And in the end, I just say, look, mate, that's just boring. Yep. You committed the biggest sin of all, being boring.
Yes.
And I think that's where we get to the point. It's like when people are bored of a brand, whether it's bored of something, then it's like, it's not exciting anymore. What's exciting about Scottish independence? What's exciting about Humza Yousaf and these? And there's nothing exciting about these people at all. I'm not to say that the other people are more exciting, but at least they've got some momentum anyway. Yep. And they've got some ideas that maybe they want that people are interested in. There was a poll today. It was about, again, what are the actual priorities of voters, and only 30% of SNP voters, thought that independence was their highest priority. I mean, that's a death sentence for their party.
Yeah,
I think
if they can't even convince their own supporters that a devolution referendum is a good, or an independence referendum, what have they got left? Really, what have they got? They're going to try and sell these unpopular policies that their own supporters and their own MSPs and their own voters don't want. Okay, good luck, guys. It's going nowhere. The SNP is going down and down. It will fall. Support for the SNP will fall further now. Seriously.
Well, certainly once we get to this election, if we ever get to this what's it called, Rutherglen,
Yes.
not
By-election.
by-election.
Yep.
Then and they can have a lot of bravado right now, but when it comes to starting to lose elections, then it's full on panic stations, and people go like, why am I even bothering with this? Anyway, now David, you were going to talk a little bit about this fatal contradiction at the heart. It's kind of the same kind of idea.
Absolutely. It's very much in the same vein. There's a fatal contradiction at the heart of the SNP, and you see it's exposed every time an election comes around. And this is how it goes. SNP supporters will tell you they're all about hating Tories, terrorists that hate Tories, Tories out, all that stuff. Fine, okay. Don't tell me you're a Tory. I'm not going to talk to you if you're a Tory. Okay, fine. It's clear that's their mantra. That's their reason to interest to beat Tories. Fine. So the Tories must be defeated. The problem then occurs when these same SNP voters tell you, but of course, Labour's no better, and they're unelectable anyway because of Blair. And the guy said that to me today. Blair, biggest liar ever, and all that stuff. And Iraq, better together. They stood with Tories, the red Tories. Okay, fine, all right. So that's the argument they subsequently put forth on social media. The same people with the SNP. So my reply is always the same. Okay, I get that. You don't like Tories, you don't like Labour. Which party do you want to form the UK government following the next general election in that case? And the replies are the same. Oh, no, we've moved past that. I'm all about Scotland and what Scotland does. Labour are just red Tories. I want an independent Scotland. Labour's got nothing to offer Scots who are just favour independence anyway, so what's the point in voting for them? So they're just the same as the Tories. Okay.
Well, they're not. I mean, if they're the same as the Tories, then why is your Westminster leader trying to make a deal with them? Because why isn't he making a deal with the Tories then?
Exactly, because they're the same as Labour. Right. Indeed.
Yeah. So that's good. I'm going to put a tweet.
That's a very good one, indeed. That is a good one.
Tweet coming up.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. So,
they don't seem to live in the real world.
Absolutely.
They have to.
Understatement.
Okay. They have to make a decision, right? They have to go with one or the other. And if it's not going to be the Tories, then everyone knows.
Exactly my point. And this is the thing that I fell out with loads of people. They fell out with me, I should say, 4 years ago, whenever it was at the last general election, when a lot of people say, I hope Labour wins, Jeremy Corbyn wins and all that stuff. And other people saying, I hope SNP get more seats and all that stuff. And I was saying to people, you know what's going to happen? Boris Johnson's going to win here, guys. That's what's going to happen. And people unfriended me. And they thought, I remember people having huge fights with me that night saying, how can you want Boris Johnson to win? And I would say to them, well, who did you want to win then? That's not the point. Well, what is the point then? If you don't want him to win, surely you want someone else to win. You can't have somebody losing unless somebody else wins. I wanted a hung parliament and I wanted Labour to be holding the power. Right, so you voted Labour. Oh, no, I voted SNP. So hang on. So you wanted a Labour government so badly you wanted to vote. I said, what? You voted SNP? Nonsense. So I will always say to them now, okay, you don't like Labour. You think Labour are red Tories. So you want the Conservatives to form the next government then. And that's when they get really angry with me. What the fuck are you talking about? I hate Tories. Right, okay, so you want to see the Conservatives removed from office then? Yep, we're agreed, okay. So who do you want to replace them? Which party? And that's when the replies just stop, because they can't say, actually, I would like a Labour government. They won't say it. They will not say it. And I challenge all of you guys tonight, listening, anytime you get talking to an SNP or an independence voter who says, I hate Tories and I hate Labour, just say to them, fine, who would you like to win the next election? It's coming up in less than 18 months. Who do you want to win it?
Yes. Well, this is the thing, I think.
Maybe they don't want anyone to win it.
This is the thing that's coming.
They can't see beyond SNP.
There is an inevitability that this thing is coming up, and people are going to have to go to the polls, and they're going to say, and it's going to be presented to them in the media and so on, and by us and by other people, and even people on their own side, or kind of in their own side, or socialists, so-called socialists, that if they vote for SNP, it makes it less likely for Labour to win.
That's right. Right?
And it's a simple truth. So are they going to go in there and say, I want Tories, I want that chance that the Tories will win?
Absolutely right.
That's not going to. I don't think that's going to happen. It's like that sketch. The one with all the Bravehearts go into the polling booth.
That's it, and they change their mind when they get there, and they put the cross against. No, the point I will make to these people is understand that by voting SNP, you're doing exactly what the Westminster Conservative government wants you to do, and that is avoid voting Labour and make it more difficult for Labour to win the election.
Yes,
we've got to be. I've said this.
That's another tweet.
Exactly. We've said this. We've talked about this for a long time now, Mark and Mary. Until we get SNP voters, pro-independence voters, feeling on a visceral level right in here, we've got to stop the Tories. How do we do that? Then we're going to carry on going the same way. What we have to make clear to them is simply by voting SNP in a first past the post UK general election, you are doing absolutely nothing to stop the Conservative government. Nothing. Because for the last 3 elections, 2015, 2017, 2019, Scotland's voted the SNP for the SNP in big numbers. And the Conservatives have won every time. So if you want to see the same thing happen again, just vote SNP again.
That's a very good point.
Yep.
Yeah, I think interesting times ahead. We're going to see a lot of people starting to, well, especially after, as I said, after the Rutherland or any other by-election, they're going to see people overtly switching and saying, I've had enough of this. Why is the point? It's dead end. We tried. That was it. Great.
I agree. And Simon tried this line with you, Mark. So why, Mark, do you think that independent support is high, but support for the SNP is low? Trying to get you to say, everyone wants you back, Alex. No, they don't.
I never even thought of that.
Nobody's going to vote Albert on this.
It's a dead end at the end of a dead end.
Exactly.
That's what it is. It's just,
the light at the end of that tunnel is just a fire that's going to consume you.
That's very, very true.
Yep.
I think we're going to be talking about this quite a bit here. One thing, of course, we have to be wary of, is that many of our people who watch us are Conservatives, of course, many Labour followers as well, but have to be to get those ex-SNP back to the SNP. Labour has to put out strong anti-Tory messages, which is against what we were for a few years ago of running on a combined ticket, or at least forming even an informal alliance. That was a great section. Coming up, we're going to have more sexual deviancy from the SNP. This is a weekly headline. But
there's no end to
before that, more than ever, we need your donations to keep the fight going. On days like today and every other day, we're working from morning till night to keep you informed, to amplify your voice. It takes a lot of effort. Even the show takes a lot of planning. And if we don't do it, who will? That's the big question. Right. So if you do like what we do, we would very much appreciate if you could make a one-time or monthly donation for our ongoing efforts. Okay, we're back in a second with the sexual deviance again.
Okay.
Yours or David's?
It's David's doing this.
Yeah, actually, this is me. Yeah. So, guys, we've all seen the SNP has a long-standing and a very real issue with sexual deviant members of Parliament and councillors. I mean, it's undeniable they do. They have a real problem. And more disturbingly, the party has a very strange, shall we say, very unusual method of dealing with matters when these issues arise. I mean, normally you would think, okay, somebody in the party has been caught or has been accused of some sort of sexual misconduct, right, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll suspend them and support both sides and just make sure we get to the bottom of it. Not the SNP, though. What they do is they do victim blaming, they do overt support of the accused. And it's quite bizarre. We talked about it last week, the North Lanarkshire councillors. I've talked about this councillor in Renfrewshire, and I'm never going to let go of that. To these two MPs and MSPs, guys, you're going to be meeting soon on that one, I promise you, because I know that you know about this. Anyway, so 2 North Lanarkshire councillors were actually expelled from the party for speaking out against a sexual deviant in their midst, and the other 7 have now resigned. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, the suspicion is that the SNP is tough on those who report sexual misconduct allegations, but extraordinarily weak on the alleged offenders. And this week, those suspicions bore fruit yet again, because we all remember Patrick Grady, and we all remember Ian Blackford saying in that recorded meeting, well, everyone knows what I feel about Patrick. Yeah, right. Patrick Grady, who I think he was 44, and he had sexually abused a 19-year-old man, as is often the case with.
Well, I read today that Blackford was there. I tell you.
Christ, really? My God.
Yeah, it's in Wikipedia. It's in Wikipedia.
Oh God! But so that's what happened, and they tried hard for years to stick up for him. Eventually, the young staffer left the party, and of course, Grady was suspended from the House of Commons for like 2 days, I think, and I think he's still suspended from the party. However, Grady has announced his intention to stand again for the SNP in the North Glasgow constituency, which he currently represents. And bear in mind that there are changes to the Glasgow constituencies, and Glasgow will lose one constituency, and somebody's going to get squeezed here. One of the pieces is going to get squeezed. So he's probably making his play, saying, okay, come on. And unbelievably, the quote attributed to Brady was even more bizarre. I hope to attract Catholic voters in the constituency because of my faith. So he's now come down to this. I'm a Tim. Vote for me. Seriously, is this what we've reached? In all seriousness, forget the fact that I'm a groper and I've molested a guy half my age. You know, I go to mass. I go to chapel. Come on, guys, vote for me.
Well, the thing is,
maybe he does, but he certainly shouldn't be taking communion.
Absolutely right, Maree. Indeed, I know very.
Well, I think it's insulting. I mean, it's just insulting to Catholics anyway, right?
Exactly. So the very thought that
just like that they'll somehow put up with this guy.
Catholics for gropers,
because they're Catholics. I mean, I know there are some issues with the church and all that, and sexual abuse in the church, but most Catholics are appalled by this kind of behavior. Right. And it's not on to try and do that. And it's so tribal as well. It's not like I'm appealing to the people in my constituency of all faiths, all kinds of people. And I regret my actions. I'm sorry about it. I was really drunk. It's terrible. No excuse, whatever, like that, And then, but I do a good job, blah, blah, blah. Write up your stuff.
Right.
I don't know. Show your CV. But that's the way to do it. You don't appeal to this narrow religious thing. It just seems very, very, very poor to me. And
no, it's just not. How much depths they can plumb from here, I really don't know. But I mean, that's the thing. We all know there's a major problem with sexual deviancy in this. I mean, we know there is. It's so many instances of it, and now it's reached this stage where even ahead of the event, probably 18 months ahead of the election, he's already giving his reasons why people should vote for him, despite the fact that the guy has already been found guilty of this and served a suspension. Absolutely, I think this is one of the lowest yet. And of course, Humza Yousaf, being Humza said, if he's chosen by his constituency and if he is elected, if he's chosen to be the guy who is the candidate, well, yes, I'll back him. Right.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's quite something. Here's the
Sean says he must spend all his free time in the confessional.
I bet he does. Yeah. Yes. The rest of his time doing the penance that the priest tells him.
A few Hail Marys and Our Fathers for that.
The priest should be saying to him, I don't think this is what you should be doing. Really. This is not.
You would hope the priest would be saying that.
Or have we prayed to Jesus would say to him? No, do not do that.
Dreadful. I mean, really poor stuff. Poorest yet, and I'm sure it'll get worse, though, guys. I'm sure it'll be more
nonsense. Okay, moving on from the weekly or daily sex pestery. Mary is going to come up with some the daily or
the regular.
Stories,
let's say the very regular
about ferries.
Yes, getting worse.
Right. Okay, here we are. As it says there, like and subscribe. We really could do with more subscriptions. That will really help us. Thank you. It is up.
Okay, so today, one of the things we heard today was from Cabinet Minister Neil Gray, and he confirmed that the intention is for Ferguson Marine, the ill-fated shipyard, is to be placed back into private ownership, which might be difficult, actually, because Scotland's public spending auditors have said that there remains doubt over the long-term future of the shipyard because of the lack of a business plan. Any entrepreneur will know, or even if you're not an entrepreneur, I think you know that usually you start with the business plan. So if they don't even have a plan for the future, but it's because of Ferguson Marine and, of course, the fact that they haven't actually built the two ferries they were supposed to build, the Glen Sannox and Hull 802, they were due to go online, to sail back in 2018. We're now in 2023, so we're 5 years down and we still don't know when they're going to sail. But of course, every year, every season that goes by, the chaos gets worse and worse. And this summer is looking to be the most painful yet for the people and the businesses in the Highlands and Islands who rely on the ferries. Because the ferry chaos is worsening yet again. It's just all we're hearing is we're seeing constant headlines of this boat is out of action and that boat is out of action. So the islanders are fed up, to say the least, and they're starting to demand emergency intervention from the Transport Minister, Kevin Stewart, and they're now looking for compensation. The businesses especially are looking for compensation. So what's happening at the moment is, for example, the main ferry that's serving Mull and Iona is to be taken away to cover the service to South Uist. And that's on top of the Corrin vehicle ferry, which provides an alternative route to and from Mull. It's being taken out of action in early June. And nobody expects the MV Isle of Mull to return to its usual service at the end of the month. So there's boats, basically ferries everywhere, are out of service. They're not working. They're having problems, which is what you would expect when you've got an aging fleet. I mean, most of these ferries are well over their age of service, but they're still, trying
Here we have
to
a
run.
comment, and it's I live where the Corrin ferry has been on the blink for weeks. It's a total joke. SNP don't care about the Highlands and Islands.
Totally true. Totally true.
Well, the people on Mull and Iona, they're angry. They're saying basically it's utter chaos and it's leaving the community strangled. They've said the ferry system is an utter chaos. They're currently unable to book travel on or off the island. They're trapped.
Honestly,
they can't book anything via Oban until June. So pretty much every sailing is showing us full, not just for the vehicles, but for the foot passengers too. I think there's something like 7,000 passengers a day, less, capacity than there should be at 7,000 a day. They can't leave unless they've already made arrangements weeks ago. And tourists can't get to the islands. And of course, the economy is completely dependent on tourists. Well, not completely, but strongly.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Well, I think this is definitely a problem with this. I think it all comes down to this excess political control in this thing. Was this a problem ever before? No, I don't think so. It's because they've got some incompetent minister at the top or incompetent people who don't know how to run anything. Exactly. Just don't know what to do about anything. Now, you'd think that you need to have people who have some competence. In the UK civil service certainly should have some competence in these matters. I'm pretty certain they can build ferries for other parts of the UK. They can build destroyers and what have you in Glasgow as well. So it's not like Glasgow can't make ships, and it's not like the UK government can't make ships either. It's the Scottish government cannot do this at all. It's just completely hopeless.
Exactly. Just to pick up on that, Mark, I mean, people may not have heard this, but when I was standing for election in that area in West Scotland, of which Port Glasgow is part, a constituent got in touch with me and said, I work in shipyards. That's what I do. I'm a ship engineer. I've been approached by a recruiter who is filling jobs on behalf of Ferguson's. They are offering literally 50% of the going rate, the amount I could get further up the Clyde. That's what they're offering. Half the going rate. And I said, why are they doing that? He said, well, they know they're not going to get people. So they're not going to get anybody who's any good. They're just trying to fill the jobs. And shortly after that, it emerged that the people who were taking the jobs were Romanians who were being flown in. And this is nothing against Romanian people at all. But people, labour resources from Romania were being brought in. They had no experience at all. And they were standing about all day not knowing what to do. And that's what's happening. So the SNP is saying we're maintaining jobs and we're on in the Upper Clyde, and we're retaining shipbuilding as an industry in the Upper Clyde. We saved thousands of jobs. No, you haven't. You've offered hundreds of completely fictitious jobs where people are doing absolutely nothing. People who haven't even got the capability to do anything. So it's a complete farce. I mean, what's happening there is it's completely fake. As you said, further up the Clyde, Camel Laird, whatever it is, that the just up, they're building destroyers, no problem at all. But in Ferguson Marine, it's like employing me and you to build ships. We can't do it. I can't do it. But they could say, look at that, we've given these guys a job. Fantastic. Means nothing. I can't produce anything. It's ludicrous. So it's all fake. It's all just spending public money so they can say.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can all remember, of course, the actual boss getting paid $2,500 a day.
Exactly.
A day.
Brilliant.
And there's no ferries there. So you get in. He came in, and spent his year or so. He got his £500,000 or whatever it is, more than that even. And then he was off.
Exactly. He was the turnaround guy. He was the guy who was going to. What did he turn around other than his own?
Turned himself around. Yeah.
Turned his bank account around.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's a guy called Joe Reid. He's the committee chairman of Mull and Iona Ferry Committee, and he made a really good point. I think he said, look, hundreds of millions of pounds have been poured into Port Glasgow, into Ferguson Marine to keep them afloat, but nothing has yet been offered to all of the businesses across the Hebrides. And they employ thousands of people.
Yes.
So what about those businesses?
Absolutely
what about those,
right.
Well, that's
people?
the problem, again, I said, with the political control. It's you get the politicians play favourites, or favourite policies and their favourite companies and so on. And it should really not be in their this type of thing shouldn't really be in their hands at all. I mean, it should be a trivial matter. We should not be hearing about this. We don't hear about the delays and the whatever it is, they destroy their building. They don't,
Right,
because it gets done properly. Competent people doing that.
I mean, shipbuilding and building boats, building ferries is not rocket science. It's not like we're trying to take them to Mars.
Exactly.
You know, it's like we've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years.
The
Not new
truth behind
science.
this, so one of our viewers has said this. SNP snubbed the launch of UK-built Navy ships this week. That's right, they did it the other week. But the reason that this all happened was because the UK government had announced they were going to launch, or they were going to build, given a contract to, I think it was Camel Labour, one of those actually Upper Clyde shipyards, to build some UK naval ships. Sturgeon, because the SNP conference was just going to be held a few days later, said, right, we've got to do something. What we're going to say, I know, we'll say that we're going to take over Ferguson's, and we're going to say, that's what happened. And it's just like, it's just you're giving, as Mark said, the Scottish government has no idea how to build ferries. But it's not difficult. There are people all over Scotland who can build ferries, just not these individuals. They happen to.
Or they can buy them. If you can't build them, just buy them.
No, I mean, it's not complicated. It really isn't very complicated. All right, Mary, good.
I think we've lost David at the moment.
Thanks for the section. Oh, yes, okay. Right.
In Port Glasgow.
No. Oh, you're back.
Sorry, we lost you for a minute there, David.
Well, I can see the yellow thing there. Anyway, I'm sure you get the idea. Nothing's going to change here until they employ qualified people and pay them the going rate. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter how many turnaround
someone will pick up as a bargain, no doubt, and then they'll turn it around and make money off of it and sell it, and we'll have.
But after the taxpayer has lost
an awful lot of money,
hundreds of millions.
After we're all on the hook,
and after the islanders have had a dreadful service for God knows how many years. It's absolutely appalling. And one thing I will say here, and this is not to be macabre about this, when I was involved in a discussion about how island services affect islands, I was asked, what do you think the biggest problem is in Millport? And I did some research. This was on a phone in one time. The biggest problem is drug deaths, because people over there can't get off the island and they're taking drugs because they're bored, young people, and they're dying. That's the ultimate result of this nonsense. This isn't trivial, guys. This isn't just about us sneering at the SNP for being incompetent. Leaving people on an island that they can't escape for anything, that's very dangerous. You can't do that.
SNP's prison islands. Right, great. Thank you for that, David, and also for Mary there. Can you answer your phone, please? Turn the phone off. Okay, things you can do right now to support the show. You can make a donation to the majority. I already mentioned that. Go to our homepage and do that. You can buy a T-shirt or a mug. You can get one of these amazing, beautiful. You're my favourite Zoomer T-shirts. Plus, what's the other one called? You can take our lives, but they'll never take our camper vans.
Yeah,
we have that as well. And abolish Holyrood.
These are all original designs, people.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We're going to put some Devolution ones up, Mary mentioned earlier, I think. Anyway, for those. Also, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, which really helps a lot. Please do so, and especially now that we're still having trouble getting back the majority Facebook page. More on that in another show. Anyway, please tell your friends about us or do all of the above. Next coming up, it's the highlight of the week. It is the moment we have all been waiting for. It is Zoomer of the Week.
Yay.
Right, so anyway, mine, just to get started here, mine is Social Care Minister. Yes, the lady in charge of rolling out the SNP's National Care Service, which is going to cost It's going to cost £1.3 billion. Anyway, she had a terrible appearance at Carter. Her name is Maree Todd, is that right?
Maree Todd.
Maree Todd, that's right.
Maree Todd. It's not with an H.
No, it's Maree.
Right,
Odd spelling, really.
Yes. Anyway, she told MPs it would not be possible to produce updated costings for the committee for the service by Friday, May the 12th, in defiance of requests by the committee. The picture over here, actually. This is that. And basically, she's trying to. This social care thing is a bit of a nightmare. It's a typical thing. They want to put everything, centralise everything, put it under government control. Is there really a problem with the healthcare system? This national care system? I don't think so.
No.
Well, whatever problems there are can be solved with with what they've got. They don't have to spend 1.3 billion trying to transform it. I mean, just make some changes, make some reforms.
It's supposed to be an NHS style solution to Scotland's social care problems, which has resulted, though, the problems are that we have delayed discharges in hospitals as well as draining people's life savings.
Yeah, quite.
But the whole thing has been delayed anyway by Hamza Yousaf. So anyway, this lady's up there, just typical, doesn't know anything about it, can't say anything about it. If when questions are asked, doesn't know the answers. Just hopeless.
Well,
and it's just.
I mean, what she actually said, Mark, where she says, it's hard for me to get my head around it.
Oh, God. And this is a government minister.
I mean, why would you have someone to spend 1.3 billion pounds and they're saying, it's a bit hard. I can't really tell you what you want to know because it's quite hard even for me to get my head around it.
It's the blind leading the blind. That's what it is. And definitely.
And that's no insult to blind people.
Quite.
What do I have to say that now?
I think it's wise, probably.
Right. Okay. So yes, the blind. Oh, really? Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of blind people who could probably do a better job of this than she.
Well,
she's doing.
Yes, irrespective of your visual abilities, perhaps. Anyway, just I don't know. It's just one of these things. It's just a general incompetence and zoomerism that the SNP have. We have these people. I mean, they've been elevated, right? They're just they shouldn't even get anywhere near Parliament. I was talking about this with someone the other day, and it's just this idea that this Parliament has raised these people with no competence, and in many cases they're real extremists, and they would never get anything in the UK Parliament because the first past the post system. Exactly. And also, as another thing, right? We say, I really don't. It really puts you off the idea of proportional representation. That's because, the first past the post means at least the best person can get to the top. This list thing means they can put any old person on.
Exactly that. And we see that exactly, yeah. So in first past the post, at least the chances are the cream will rise to the top, unless you've got, unless of course you've got the situation we've got, which is the three pro-UK parties knock lumps out of each other like three bald men fighting over a comb, and then the SNP wins every seat. I saw a guy today in Parliament. I'd never heard of him, John Rennie or something. Mate, who are you? I've never seen you before, never heard your name. And he's the MP for Falkirk. Okay, fine. But that is the problem. But yes, in theory, yes, first past the post should be better. The list, as you've seen what happens with the list, my God, the number of no-hopers end up in Holyrood because of the list.
Yeah, and also lets these extremist Greens in as well,
sure,
which is the major issue. Anyway, back to Maree, Maree. Basically learn your brief and actually do it.
Yes.
And
if you're not up to it, get out.
Exactly. If it's too much, if you can't get your head around this, resign. Hey, there you go.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you should have. I mean, imagine, Rishi Sunak went up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Prime Minister's questions. And
I'm laughing because think how ridiculous that would be if he did that.
But that's what we're getting.
Keir Starmer says, "Well, what about this policy,
new national care system?"
Yeah, like that character in the Fast Show when people asked him questions when he was the croupier. What the odds against this? And he said, "I don't know, mate. Sorry, I don't know." And that's pretty much what they're saying.
I was just doing it for a laugh, maybe. Like Rishi Sunak, look, I don't really care. I don't actually.
I can't get my head around it. Yeah.
I don't actually care about this. I wanted this job for power.
McNally, Tommy boy. Sorry, that's the very name.
Right. Anyway, so that's my Zoom. I don't think this is a winner. I'm just going to say. But anyway.
No, maybe not.
I think yours is much better.
A waste of 1.3 billion should be a winner.
It should be, yeah. By all rights, it should be. Anyway, here's one coming up, yeah.
Right, okay, here's the next one up. I should retain my lack of confidence in my own
Let the public speak.
Trying to get the sympathy vote, I can tell.
They will have their say. Come what may, exactly.
It is David, I believe.
Oh, yes, it's me. Right, okay. My nomination this week for Zoomer of the Week is comedian Scott Agnew. And I have to say, I'd never heard of him in the context of being a comedian.
Oh, God, I don't have the tape of this. Hold on.
Yeah, don't worry. I can't remember what you said. Don't worry. I sent it to your Twitter.
Okay. Let's see if I can get it now.
Fine. So, Scott, yesterday, for those of you who haven't heard the story, was featured on Radio Scotland, phone in at 9 a.m. with Kay Adams. I'm sure many of you have listened to it. Kay does a really good job pulling it together. She's quite a talented broadcaster and a question host. She sometimes may have seen her on Loose Women also. She's a talented woman. Anyway, the subject for discussion yesterday was the Stand Comedy Club's decision to withdraw its invitation to Joanne Cherry to appear there. They invited her, and then they said, actually, we don't think we can, on the grounds that some of our staff members are a little bit uncomfortable with your views on self-ID and maybe the fact that they think you might be transphobic. So Kay Adams said, well, what do we think, guys? Do they have the right to do this? And somebody made the very interesting point that in a game of football, if Rangers fans said, I object to the, or Rangers employees rather said, I object to the religious views of these Celtic players, so I'm not comfortable being at this game and officiating at it, so I don't want them to play. Would they be in the rights to have Celtic players banned? Of course they wouldn't. That's ludicrous. It's absolutely insane. But that's effectively what the Stand employees are saying, was the point being made. Now, Kay Adams, of course, her job is just to field these calls and say, what do you think? So she asked all these people, and she asked this guy, Scott Agnew, what do you believe? And he said, well, I back Joanna Cherry, I like her, but I think sometimes, when I back people's rights to freedom of speech, but if they go over the line into transphobia, then I don't back them. So Kay said, okay, well, do you think Cherry is transphobic? Yes, I think she is, yeah. Okay, well, which of her views are transphobic?
So I've got the thing, so let's have a...
Let's answer. The question is Joanna Cherry transphobic? If so, justify why she is transphobic. And
let's see if you can hear this. First of all, tell me if you can hear it. No, I've got to play it, I suppose.
I'll go and play it, yeah.
Hear it?
Turn it up. Can't hear it. Turn it up. No, can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
Well, we can hear it. Right, okay.
Don't know if anybody else can, but I can't. Sorry, guys.
Hold on. You couldn't hear it there?
I could hear it. I'm sorry.
Right, yeah, so we can hear it on this side. All right. You know what? If you just talk for just a few seconds, I'll get it.
Of course, yeah, sure. So the point that he made, remember the question is, can you justify your labelling of Joanna Cherry as being transphobic? And he said, well, it's about the things that she... the tweets that she likes and the people she associates herself with and the views with which she seems to agree. And, of course, she says she's pro-women and pro-children. But there she was at the weekend cuddling Alex Salmond, who said at his trial he admitted himself he's no saint. And Kay Adams said, hang on, you're wavering a bit there. That's got nothing to do with transphobia. No, I'm not wavering. And he came back on, well, okay, justify. Tell me why she's transphobic. And he went straight back to Alex Salmond. Alex Salmond stood at his trial. He said, I'm no saint. I'm not saying I'm a saint. But, no, stop. That's got nothing to do with transphobia. So if you can't justify it, I'll ask somebody else. And I was used to cut him off because the guy was incapable of answering the question. Is she transphobic? Yes, she is. Why? Because she cuddled Alex Salmond. Sorry, you've lost me. What's that got to do with transphobia?
They don't seem to know what transphobic means.
Yeah, anyway, I'm going to see. Let's see.
Okay, what about Joanna Cherry's views? And Susan, I know you've got to go, but you want to come in on this. What about Joanna Cherry's views, Scott, are transphobic?
God, I could be here all day.
Well, just, go on, you've got another couple of minutes.
You could frequently have a look at the people she retweets, the people she associates with, the things that she fails to condemn.
Condemn?
Yeah,
this is a big allegation you're making, Scott. You're making a big allegation against an MP that she's transphobic.
I believe her to be transphobic,
and I'm asking you why.
And because she has actively campaigned. Now she claims she's all about the safety of women and girls. Yet on Saturday she was pictured hugging and kissing Alex Salmond during his defence at his own trial.
Right, pictured hugging.
Well, that should be a crime.
Exactly, because that was it. I mean, guys, this is a level of debate. Is she transphobic? Well, I think so. And anyway, she cuddled Alex Salmond. Right. These people are throwing, it's just like flagrant stuff. They're tossing about these allegations they don't understand, certainly can't define. So for that reason, Scott Agnew, whoever the hell you are, you're my Zoomer of the week.
Right. Well, I think as a strong contender. Now we are running a little bit over, so we're going.
I'll do mine very quickly.
Well, we're going to be 5 minutes over, so don't need to rush it, Maree. But yours is quite short, so we're okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So just a second, and we'll be back. Did I do the right thing there? Yes.
Okay, so my nomination for Zoomer of the Week is Ian Blackford for his crass lack of class wearing an SNP lanyard to the coronation.
Oh, yes, that was a good one.
Honestly.
So have you got the photo, Maree?
Yes,
Yeah?
of course, there it is.
To have a look. Oh my God.
Hello, is it this SNP lanyard you're looking for?
So, I mean, the coronation is probably the most formal event on earth. I mean, and it doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, it's just 70 years since the last one. It's a very rare, very formal event where everyone dresses to the nines, and most people are in their regalia, their military uniforms, dripping in medals, and so
abolish
on.
Holyrood t-shirts.
Abolish, yes. And then we have the embarrassment of Scotland being represented by Chief Numpty Blackford, wearing a black and yellow SNP lanyard around
Unbelievable,
his neck.
guys.
I mean, was it just another work day for him? I don't know. So if he doesn't have the respect for the dress code, then he shouldn't bother going there. I don't even know why he was there anyway, because, I mean, he's only the former leader of the SNP at Westminster. So we were reading headlines about everybody who was getting bumped off, the Earl of this and the Duke of that, and how they hadn't been invited.
Well, maybe he's there for the pies.
And then they invite Blackford.
No,
and he turns up with his little SNP lanyard on.
It wasn't even a work day. It's a Saturday, right?
Yes.
It's a Saturday. It's not even a work day.
I mean, what did he think he was doing? Like putting that on? It's absolutely ridiculous.
That's the must-have fashion accessory for any kind of
Maybe he feels undressed
event.
without it.
Maybe he thought nobody'd recognise him. Crikey, that must be it.
Yeah, well, the king should have worn one. That's what there is.
An SNP lanyard.
He should have had that on. You know, when you get the crown on top.
Exactly. There you go. Yes.
Who are you again? I'm Charles. Oh yeah, okay, right.
You might have held on it, yeah.
Maybe he thought he wouldn't get in unless he had some ID with him, you know? Like, I don't know. Apparently he was one of the first to arrive.
Oh really?
He got there the earliest.
He was there for the snacks, probably, you know.
Yes.
The buffet.
Yes.
I don't know. I just think he's a clown.
Right,
so.
okay. Well, apparently it's me who has to decide.
Oh, go on.
I don't like mine. So it's between this guy.
You can choose your own.
No, I'm not going to choose my own. Between this guy Agnew and Blackford. I think it has to be Blackford, doesn't it? It has to be, because
Agnew's a nobody. Blackford just
you don't
embarrassed himself in Scotland.
This Agnew guy is his comedy's rubbish. He's just typical nationalist politician, comedian, and just full of just not rubbish, just they're elevated far beyond their ability. But as we could say the same of Ian Blackford. But you know, imagine wearing that on such a formal occasion. Just very, very poor. Was he making it to make a statement?
A pencil behind his ear?
Or was he just, you know, so stupid he left it on? Come on, you know. It's not good. Not good at all. Right. Okay. Thank you for being with us and for us for running a little bit late. Anyway, we have we'd like to thank you for all your comments as well. And so I'll leave you with the thought of the week. The SNP had a fake it till you make it strategy. Independence is always inevitable, just around the corner and so on. Act like you're the harbingers of a new country, whatever that statement is. But when fake it till you make it, people don't make it, they're revealed as simply being fakers. It's time to make these chancers history. We're so happy to have you with us on the show every week, and you can tune in next Wednesday for more discussion. Please stay until after this, after the closing thing. So where we will be playing the interview video from Colin McGowan from the Blameless charity that helps families and children who are dealing with addiction. Until then, until next week, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for that, Alan, and everyone as well.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the comments.
Thanks, guys. I'm off for the next couple of weeks, so I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Cheers, everyone.
We'll have Niall. Niall will be back.
I will be there.
Okay. All right. So great. Thank you all for your help. Thanks.
Here at Hamilton Stadium and the Hamilton Actors Community Trust, together with our children's charity Blameless, we have for the past 6 years delivered our very successful and much requested Talking Drugs Schools programme. We have delivered these talks to classrooms across North and South Lanarkshire, parts of Glasgow, as well as into many recovery hubs, football academies, commerce such as Vodafone in both Glasgow and Manchester. Then we were over at AstraZeneca in Macclesfield, as well as many of the Scottish prisons. Our talks highlight the potential dangers of alcohol and drugs. It is our honest belief. In fact, it's more than a belief, it's fully backed with data we have gathered over the past 6 years. That data is here right in front of me. 8,000 students and pupils in their own teachers and their teachers in their own handwriting, their own words, letting us know they were not fully aware of the dangers in alcohol and drugs as they went on to do their journey into life. These 8,000 pupils and teachers are now better informed as a direct result of our Talking Drugs Schools programme. Here's what Scottish ministers don't want to hear. Scotland is losing the battle on drug deaths. If there was ever a war on drugs, we lost that war many, many years ago. And there are too many mothers and fathers who have buried their children that will testify to that fact. It's absolutely horrendous. Last year, 1,330 drug deaths, 1,245 alcohol deaths. A high percentage of the 753 suicides involved addiction and alcohol, and drug deaths are still on the rise. The Scottish Government, let's face it, they don't appear to have a credible plan. It's so very sad. Yet another new drugs minister. Should we expect more of the same? Who knows? One potential problem I believe exists is most, if not all, the drug agencies are fully or partly funded by the government, and as a result they can't be too vocal for fear of their funding being mysteriously pulled, and I've been told that on a couple of occasions, and that's a pity. These organisations have the best equipped people for the job. Their knowledge, their work ethic, their commitment is nothing short of amazing. Many of these men and women are working more than 50 hours a week. If a drug minister was selected from one of these organisations, we may see progress instead of the drugs and alcohol crisis growing out at any kind of proportion. I mean, it's getting worse. That's the reality. At Hamilton, we dared to try to help, working flat out our trust and charities together with our partners. We collectively invested tens of thousands of pounds, as well as expertise, time, energy, putting together a credible, workable, fully designed and fully costed plan with the best experts in the country to increase the rehab beds that are desperately needed, not just needed, have been promised for Scotland through a first of its kind recovery and wellbeing village. Everybody was excited about it, a model that could have been replicated and rolled out across Scotland. This was not expenditure, this was investment. Investment in saving Scottish lives. What we were told was the goal. Our application for support was unsuccessful, which came as a shock to everyone involved. This project was fully supported by the NHS, fully supported by every drug and alcohol agency. Check it out, as well as complete cross-party political support. I've emails here. I sent requests in a meeting with the drugs minister with no success. I'd hoped to have her reconsider our recovery and wellbeing village with the support that it had, but that meeting was refused. Even with the drugs minister having the full knowledge of the work that we do here that's been complemented in our own parliament over the past 20 years in the field of addiction, we still could not get that meeting, and I found that disappointing to say the least. Gutted that couldn't even, the work we've tried to do at Hamilton, we have worked tirelessly, doing our very best to support those most vulnerable in our communities. Our most recent work, the publication and distribution of 10,000 copies of our book, There's Always Hope, a book with real, true life, lived experience of recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. These books are distributed for free through Scottish prisons and recovery communities, and again we have evidence, real evidence of people reaching out for help through our book's content, the book's content guiding and signposting people into meaningful recovery. It's clear the Scottish Government can't afford the rehab beds needed. That being the case, it's only common sense. We the people, we must, through time, reduce the need for rehab beds. The rehab beds the Scottish Government clearly can't afford to provide. And that can only be done by education, intervention and prevention. I'll read out this is just part of an email I've received from the Scottish Government. I may put it online, but it's not that important. I'm telling you, I received it the other day. This is a quote, I continue to be committed to improving access to residential rehabilitation to ensure that everyone can have access to the right treatment and from recovery. This is why our aim is to increase statutory funded placements so that at least 1,000 people are publicly funded for their placements per year by 2026, whilst also working to increase overall residential capacity by 50% from 425 to 650 beds over the course of this Parliament. End of quote. That was signed on the 22nd of March 23 by Angela Constance, the Drug Minister. She resigned 6 days later and is now the Cabinet Secretary for Justice and Home Affairs. I think you'll agree that that's not ideal. The promises and commitments in her statement are unlikely to be fulfilled. My grandmother once said, Colin, paper can't help what's written on it. And a wee tip for you, son, if a politician's lips are moving, there's a good chance they're lying. My granny was a remarkable woman. It's what to do. Could I ask, if you have taken the time to listen to this podcast, please forward it to as many of your contacts as you possibly can. We're attempting to raise enough funds to continue and increase our Talking Drugs Schools programme, because as God is my judge, if you're allowed to say that these days, these talks will and are making a difference, saving lives, and with more education, prevention and intervention, we can and will continue to make a difference. Let's face it, almost all of us know or have a family member, a friend, a work colleague or a neighbour whose lives and the lives of their family, because this is a family illness, are being torn apart by active addiction. That's really sad. That's a sad fact. Our Talking Drugs Schools programmes has been proven to make a difference. We can't get the support for it, but it's been proven to make a difference. Please help us to continue by making a donation to our Talking Drugs Schools programme crowdfunding page. It's politicians can't help educate and protect our children. We have to do it ourselves. It's our honest opinion and belief, and this is backed with data, that our Talking Drugs Schools programmes will, in time, reduce the amount of rehab beds needed. And as I said, the rehab beds we're not providing. Education, prevention and intervention is far less costly than treatment. So please forward this to as many people as you possibly can. Many of our children's lives may well depend on this. For you to donate, the information's coming on your screen now. Please download absolutely free our 164-page first edition of our book, There's Always Hope, using the QR code. This book contains true life stories of recovery from addiction, as well as signposting to multiple helplines. It's a really good book to be having and giving to anybody that might need it. So that information to donate is coming on your screen now. Thanks for taking the time to listen.